Excellent. It's wonderful to meet you, sir. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
Oh, thank you for putting the show. Love your show, and it's just been kind of fun to see the neon jazz and the authorship and great stories coming together. So,
Thank you. Thank you. It's been fun. It's a lot of fun. I love it. So I want to begin our journey into your work. You have there's so many things that are going on that are fascinating. And I want to begin with one of the things that's been one of the most tumultuous things we've lived through as humans was this pandemic. And 5 years ago it was raging, so many unknowns. How did you ultimately get through that global pandemic and how has it influenced the way that you do things now?
oh my goodness, yeah, the global pandemic is one thing. Well, to compound that, I had just taken a job offer to move across country from Arizona to the East Coast.
Yeah.
So hindsight is 2020, as they say, right? I moved in October 19, and then in March 20, right, everything shut down. So I found myself completely alone in a corporate apartment on I guess rental furniture, and I got diagnosed with cancer 2 months later.
Wow.
So talking about kind of a compounding, things, but I looked at the pandemic almost as a reset year for me. And I know it was a difficult year, a different year for many people, but specifically for me, I had for the very first time in my life kind of a WTF moment of like, why is this happening to me at first? And I kind of reframed this, wait, this is not happening to me, this is happening for me.
Yeah.
Something in my life is not in congruence. And for the first time, I took a medical leave of absence and yes, healed myself from cancer. And maybe we'll dive into this a little bit as well. But the point here, and to answer your question, it was really the first year where I was like, okay, dude, you're not in congruence in your life. You're not working on the things, although commendable work, but it was not actually doing what my soul was meant to be doing. And so, moving through all of that, writing this book, and realizing what I actually was meant to be doing was really a part of the healing journey. But doing this all, you know, being locked down and alone and not having my family around, it was like for many people, I'm sure it was a hard one.
We always, I used to be in corporate America, and I understand how, when you get into that environment, you just kind of move, you just kind of keep going and going and going, and you almost don't have time. It's like kind of like the subway keeps flying by, and you're like, I can't read the number. It's going too fast, right? And then you just finally get to this point where life affords you this biological crossroad, this existential moment where you have to figure out who you are. And I hear that happen so much with people that get into corporate executive positions. Are you just thankful? I know it's horrible to go through cancer and things that stop you in your tracks, but do you look back and think something had to happen for me to find my way?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Honestly, I write in my book about guideposts and that we have small little nuances in our lives that show up, sometimes messages, maybe events that take place. And I look back and I go, I had three near-death experiences in my life. Then I had an autoimmune mid 40s, and then cancer was sort of the culminating, kind of the cherry on top, so to speak. And it's almost like I didn't listen. Like the signs
Yeah.
were all around me early on in life. I mean, I was 3 years old when I was rushed to the hospital and almost passed away, and I made it. And so you come to the realization that, hey, I'm still here. In fact, I just had a friend of mine pass away, unexpectedly, also from cancer, and I go, I'm here. She's not. Like,
Yeah.
I have to make this life count.
Yeah.
And I think for many of us, midlife crisis is sort of it's almost like a halfway point. And I describe it as like, we go through life first half and you just do the stuff and you go out in the field and, you do the things that you're told. And then halftime comes around. And so that's kind of almost a moment for us to recalibrate,
Yeah.
retrigger our lives and think about, okay, so how am I going to play the second half? What
Absolutely.
players do I want to put on the field? Who am I going to swap out? What tactics am I changing? And it's unfortunate some of us are waking up and get the fancy sports car and divorce and go right back to sleep and go back into career or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think when you're really open to sort of the gentle whisper that comes in and you take pause, right? You go back in the locker room of your life and go, hey, what do I need to change? And I think that's sort of what I went through and my encouragement that I write in the book hey, like take stock. This is a moment for like, why is this happening for you, not to you?
Yeah.
And what do you need to change to really truly, come out of this and win the game of life?
So, in these experiences, this trio of experiences of almost leaving this planet, did you ever see the light? How do you feel about the other side? Is it something that you're afraid of, or where are you at with that?
Oh man, no, totally not. Ironically, there is a Swiss psychologist that was famous in the 60s. She had several articles on end of life. I think even in Life magazine, I found an article. Her name is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and she had several documentaries out there. And my parents let me watch this as a 7-year-old. For them, it was the most normal thing that like life after exists, and you have so many stories of people that pass over or have near-death experience that come back and say, "Hey, seen the light." And so, no, not at all. I think for me, I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid not living.
Gotcha.
Like, I didn't want to get to the end of my life and have regrets of all the things that I should have done.
Yeah.
And so for me, really, that was like, okay, so if I now have a second chance at life, what am I going to be doing, and how different am I going to show up for myself, for my family, for my friends, for the world? And I think what came out of it is I'm unapologetically me. So yeah, I was a corporate exec, right? I made it all the way to the top. I'm a shaman, and for some people that's a negative connotation. I'm a healer, I'm a keynote speaker, I'm an author, and I caught myself during that process to go, what will people think if they know I'm a shaman, or what will shamans think if they know that I was a successful corporate exec, and all these labels that we give ourselves and that the world gives you. And I think I came to the point where I didn't give a shit anymore. And it was the most liberating thing ever
Yeah.
because once you can show up and you go, this is me,
Yeah.
love me, hate me, whatever. But ultimately, I felt like if my life really matters, I have a message. And that was really, if I could heal myself, so can you. And I really dedicate my next part here on changing the way we think about healthcare, changing the way we think about leadership, and showing up. That's it, showing up and living my best life.
Most people can only imagine having a couple of the things that you do be a part of their professional lives or what their pursuits are. And you have a lot of things that are a part of what you do. So I'm curious, when you were a kid, what was your dream? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Funny, I wanted to be a vet and drive a
Okay.
Range Rover.
Oh, cool. Okay.
That was it. There was this famous series by James Herriot, the famous vet in the UK, that had the TV series out and books out, and that was my thing. But then my dad was like, Mel, maybe you should try this. And so I actually worked in a Barnes and Noble equivalent after college. I have a German literature degree and a business administration degree, and so I think I let life happen versus kind of being a bit more thoughtful of like what my soul was calling me. So, uh, you know, I think there's a lot of maybe, I don't know about you, Joe, but like it's one of those things our parents sometimes have this hope for us, right? And oh, we
Yeah.
should do this, should do that. But to some degree, is it their hopes and their dreams that they're projecting on the kids, right?
Right.
And you have partners and are in marriages and things, and your partner may go, like wants to try to mold you, change you into their picture of who you should be. So I think I knew that I had a different plan, but I let my parents kind of influence a little bit of where I was going to go. And then, my grandfather actually lost his business, I think, twice during Great Depression afterwards. And I think it molded our family a little bit into this career driven. You got to make it to the top.
Yeah.
Only what's on if you have president or CEO on your business card, do you matter?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't. And I think once I finally called BS on that, that's sort of when that came flying free.
Yeah. So I'm curious too, what do you think were some of the foundational building blocks, seeds that were planted into you as a kid that ultimately has led you to be so visionary and so successful and diversified? What do you think was planted that has been who you are, who you become?
I would almost answer that the opposite. What was planted that was kind of keeping me quiet? So my parents, or my dad was a teacher in Switzerland, rural Switzerland. This was still an elected position. So my parents were very keen on making sure I'm all of us kids left a good impression in town.
Yeah.
And I would always told like, don't be so loud. What will the neighbors think? Or oh, like don't be so loud. Like we can hear you to the next village over. And that almost instilled in me that I can't be loud, that my voice doesn't matter, that my story doesn't matter, and I sort of conformed, right? So
Yeah.
it's in this conformity of life. Yeah, don't make big waves. Just do what you're told. And I guess you could argue because of that, it also allowed me to kind of move up the ladder because you conform in the boss's strategy and the boss's strategy, and then you've probably seen it as well, right?
Yeah.
You kind of execute on the plans from somebody else.
Yeah.
So I think I was the opposite, and go back what I said before. If they only knew that I'm a shaman, if they only knew that I'm a corporate exec, I finally just broke free and said, "Hey, I have a story to tell. I got to get loud. I got to come out with all this." So it's almost like I think this flame was always there as a little boy. I had to kind of go through these life experiences to find the little boy again and
Yeah.
and and open a door.
That's such a wonderful way of describing that, because I feel like that in my older age, like I'm just kind of protecting and showing my younger self, hey, this is what happens. This is what can happen with life, and it always kind of keeps that wonder inside of you too. You don't lose that childlike fascination, because I think that fuels us and makes us stronger.
Yeah, indeed. In one of my keynotes, it's called Return to Sender. I early on realized in my healing journey that I was living somebody else's dreams and somebody else's expectations. And in my case, it was really about walking through life thinking I'm not lovable. And if that is a fact, what do I do about to mitigate that?
Yeah.
And so in my romantic relationships, it was like, okay, I'm not lovable. So if that's the case, then I need to show up as the rescuer
Yeah.
and be the provider and the rescuer for all that. So all my life, I was going through that. And as I was starting to think, where did that originate from? Because this truth of like you're not lovable started to kind of break away. And really interesting to me was that I was like, oh, this came from my two grandmothers. So my mom had a tubal pregnancy and almost bled to death between my siblings and I. In all sense and purposes, should not have had another child from a medical perspective. And they got pregnant again with me, miracle child, one fallopian tube. Here I come. Simone is ready to be born.
Yeah.
We have two reactions from my grandmothers. One was like, "You're challenging God. What the hell are you doing? You should not be pregnant. You're putting yourself at danger and the baby at danger." That said, grandmother was always mean to me. It was never safe. It was never one of those like, hey, go to grandma's house, have lemonade and have cake and ice cream and chocolate. No, it was more like kind of a negative aspect. The other grandmother, however, my grandfather, so her husband passed away 2 weeks before I was born. And for her, it was like, oh my gosh, I can now pour all this love and all this on this baby, and I can, I have a purpose again of taking care of someone. So if you think about it, I learned early in life, one grandmother didn't like me, so I'm not lovable.
Yeah.
The other grandmother loved me, but it was conditional,
Yeah.
right? Because I came in. And so in this keynote, I talk about these stories, return to sender. Like this was placed on me. I didn't ever ask to be, having their truth or their realities placed on me. And it's totally liberating when you send this back, right? So in this case, you can write a letter. I wrote a letter to both of them, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it. Obviously, didn't mail it because they're both, no longer here, but burn it in the fire. And going through this act of like, hey, take it back. This isn't my reality. This is your reality. It finally kind of broke away another layer, for that little boy come back out and like, oh, okay, so if I'm no longer constricted by the truth of other people, what is my reality? What is my
Yeah.
truth?
That's
Um,
interesting.
so yeah, so that's my encouragement to your listeners out there and anybody else that I'm speaking to on stage. It's you can be an active participant in your life and directing your life. You don't have to be a victim of your circumstances, but you gotta, return to center.
That's so very well said. So let me ask you this. Who's been that heroic force? Who's been that inspiration for you in your life to find who you are and to become the man you are?
You know, it sounds a bit ego and a bit arrogant, but I think it was me.
Yeah,
It was finding myself again through all of these illnesses, right, and near-death experiences. And then once I said yes, there was many teachers, right? I studied with a variety of indigenous leaders and tribal healers and teachers and philosophers. I think teachers came along the way and equipped me with, the tools to further my healing path, and also, started to help me formulate who I really truly was, and kind of, finding that. But it wasn't so much, I wish I could say it was Nelson Mandela or, somebody else. I don't have these big heroes in life. It was really about finding myself and
yeah.
finding the true essence and believing that, I'm here on this earth for a reason.
So what motivates you every day to get up to have this balance, to do this work to help and improve lives, but to also take care of your soul and live in the most exalted way that you can? What is that for you every day?
Yeah, I mean, out of my illness and having an autoimmune that I was misdiagnosed, and then cancer as well coming through. And this isn't an attack on the Western medical system, but I think it has its limitations. It's almost a pendulum swung a little bit too far this way with, quick fixes and pharmaceuticals. And for me, I really dedicate my life to changing the way we think about healthcare and being holistic in nature, being, perhaps also jumping in the illogical areas. And we could probably have a whole nother podcast of like what that could look like. But
Yeah,
for me, helping millions of people not going through what I went through
yeah.
and providing practical tools of doing this. And then in leadership, right? Really, this energy-based leadership academy that I just founded. It's about equipping leaders of tomorrow to work with the generations, the Gen Zs that are no longer in this development plan, KPI, OKR kind of, they want purpose, they want authenticity, they want energy. So that's what gets me out of bed, because I feel like I have a mission, I have a message. And again, thank you for having me to share a little bit of, about that. There's so much more that I could say. And then the rest of it is take care of myself, right? I get up in the morning, I do my meditation, grounding, really kind of feeling what's at stake. Good friend of mine got me into cold plunges. Many people told me I was crazy when you kind of jump into 30-degree water every morning, but that is just kind of, you feel very alive
Yeah.
afterwards. So I'm intentional, I think, with my morning routine, and then it's all about, how do I show up today?
So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, ran into that little boy version of you, let's say 10 years old, that was feeling the guilt and feeling all of these things that weren't a part of what you were doing, and you could give advice based on this life that you've led, the things that you've overcome, the wisdom you've accumulated, what advice would you give that younger version of you?
Yeah, I would say be courageous, be bold. Don't believe all the stories that you've been told.
Yeah,
And not everybody wants to be or wants to be your friend or should be your friend. Like be choose the people wisely that you spend time with. I think that will probably be one of my main areas, because I thought I was not lovable. I always tried to fit in.
yeah,
And when you try to fit in, that usually means you give up part of you or a lot of you,
yeah.
right? To be accepted. And I think that's true for many of us, that, this kind of fitting in, because at the end of the day, we all come here and, we want to be loved, we want to be accepted, we want to, and then depending on our circumstances, that could be an easier game or a harder game to be. So, but I would just say be bold, be courageous, use your voice, don't be afraid.
So let's say you walk into a room of people that all know you in a business sense from your corporate years, and you could walk up to that podium and tell them one fun story: jumping out of an airplane, wrestling an alligator, outrunning a bear, just some first concert you saw, a seminal experience in your life that's fun. What would you tell that room of people?
When I turned 50, I decided I didn't want to just have a big party and one, but I said, okay, I want to travel the world. So I made this new beginnings list, and especially after cancer. It was like, okay, I just want to go out and have all the experiences, that, and it's not just about, go see Machu Picchu or go to the Vatican or see the Taj Mahal. It's more about really connecting on a deeper level with person from around the world. I feel like if we learned again to break bread
Yeah,
and have a meal with people, we actually would probably have a better understanding than, again, think about all the world wars. It's all about ideology. Somebody believes something so strongly that they want to force it onto you.
yep.
What would it look like if we broke bread and had a meal, a good bottle of wine, and said, "Hey, I don't want to influence you, Joe, but tell me about your life.
Yeah.
What's going on, and try to just be there and hold space."
I think that's the magic of podcasting, is that it's a very wonderful realm of celebrating humans and what we do and how we're doing it, and it's anterior to what we get fed from media outlets and other things politically motivated. There's a lot of wonderful things that are happening. People have overcome, they're evolved. There's a lot of great things that are happening. So, yeah, I agree. And that's the thing when I think about how humanity is so messed up, especially governments and how they operate. If we did go back to those very base elements of who we are as human beings and just dove in and found our empathy and our compassion, and then in there is the strength and courage, it would be great. We would fix so many things.
Yeah, exactly. The path to enlightenment, right? We wouldn't have to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this: of everything that you've done and overcome, and more importantly, evolved to at this point in your life, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
I would say I'm proudest of the life that I live right now. It is, as many of you know, and you've probably experienced this as well, right? You leave corporate America, you leave that steady paycheck, and you come out. Now you have to, figure out how the money comes in, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I wake up every morning and I go, wow, like I'm finally living my purpose. I'm out there talking to a lot of amazing people. I get great feedback, and I would say feeling and being aware of our nervous system and of our energy. So what I'm most proud of is that I'm not just going through life anymore every day, kind of with blinders on and go to bed exhausted. I check in with myself. I check in, even after this conversation, I will check in and say, hey, how are you feeling, Simone? Are you feeling uplifted? Or are you feeling stressed? And if I'm feeling stressed, why am I feeling stressed? And if I'm feeling uplifted, okay, so that's a sign you got to do more Joe interviews, right? And do more of this. So that's kind of the thing that I think I'm yeah, it's a great question, right? And I feel like I'm not giving a deep enough answer, but for me, really, it's about not going through life kind of unaware, but being aware of almost every second, every minute, every hour of how are you feeling? What are you doing? How are you going to spend the next hour based on what you're feeling?
I
Right?
totally get what you're saying. I think if you live that, if you have that feeling of what you're saying, I think it's something that totally resonates. I totally get it. It supersedes all of these things like money and all of these things that society says is a part of happiness and success. There's a depth to being alive on this planet that's way more than that. And when you make that conscious decision that that's going to be your raison d'etre, so to speak, it just makes the light look different. It makes everything better.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you ask me this question, probably 2 months from now, I would say this book that's coming out, right? So
Yeah.
you have a little bit of a shameless plug here. It's the book cover. It's not out yet. It's coming probably early July. But that's, if you ask me again, that book, man, that was a healing journey in
Yeah.
itself to just writing out. So it's part memoir, part rituals, and practical guide for people, that can see, hey, I'm an everyday guy that walked through hell and back, but I'm here. And if I could heal myself, so can you. That's really my message. And so I see myself already, with this book in hand. It's out. It's a profound moment in my life of now not just writing it, healing from it, but now coming out with even more stuff that not a lot of people know about. And so there is an inkling of like, oh, there's a story in there that man, okay, it's got to come out, right? Because if I'm authentic, I got to be authentic, and all
Yeah.
of me is out there, right? There's no more secrets, and so uh, I think that will be a profoundly proud moment in my life of finally having this in the hands of millions.
But to sit down and put all those words together, you got to go through the muck and the miracle. Likewise, in the same hard charging manner. Was this cathartic for you? Like when you look at this, because writing a book's hard, but going through all of the things in your life that you hope you don't have to revisit again is way harder. So to go through this journey and to finally see it materialized in a book in your hand, has it been cathartic? What's kind of the general theme?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I never thought of myself having a great or like interesting life. I'm like, yeah,
Right.
just do my thing. Yeah, I just go through cancer, you do what you do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then some people came up to me and said, like, dude, you've had a crazy life.
Yeah.
If you believe in incarnations, a friend of mine said, well, you don't incarnate often, but when you do, you pick these craziest lives, like with all this stuff, right? And I was like, yeah, I guess it's kind of true.
Yeah.
Uh, and so it was both a reflection of like, wow, okay, shit, I did do a lot of stuff and a
Yeah.
lot of things happened for me. And at the same token, I've tried a lot of, therapies, whether that's, talk therapy or energy healing or whatever. But the book writing, I would say, was probably the most healing thing I've ever done because it's almost like, you write all this pain away. It's kind of
Yep.
flowing through you into your fingers and you come out with your stories and you go, okay, so, but what did I learn from that experience?
Yeah.
So I would say writing this book was probably the best healing I have ever done. And I didn't have to go pay a psychiatrist,
Yeah.
$200 an hour or so
That's
to sit
it.
on the
Free
couch.
therapy. I love it.
Yeah,
I've always thought that too with writing. It's the
right?
best version of therapy that you can have. So let me ask you this. Let's get to the crux of things. At the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone that's known you, but you're the one that's running the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm deeply in love with myself for the first time. I don't no longer have this, I'm not lovable or, I need to earn love or something. I'm for the very first time in my life, feel completely at peace, completely content, and I can be unapologetically me. That's that's it. And as I said, I show up. And I'll give you an example. What was so interesting to me, I spent, probably good 20 years in churches, but also because my ex-wife literally wanted to be there. Not that I had a deep religious or Christian belief. Like I always knew there was some kind of higher power there, but I spent 20 years. Now, granted, I've made great friends. I was a musician in the band. We rocked it out. It was super fun. But it kind of came to an end at some point. And in this, becoming the Rocket Shaman, that's why the book is called that. It's my evolution of like who I used to be and who I used to be or thought I needed to be to fit in to who I am now.
Yeah.
I got a Facebook Messenger, well, uninvited message from a cousin of mine, and it just said, "Oh, in caps, hey, what happened to this shaman thing? Like, aren't you walking with Jesus? Like, uh, you know, and did you lose him somewhere?" And at first, I was taken aback a little bit by that,
Yeah.
right? And the old self, I think, would be, "Oh man, like I'm doing something wrong," or like, "Oh, he hates me," or he doesn't like me. And then, as many of us probably would react, you would try to justify, this is what I do, and you're having this all wrong. And I was like, and this is how this return to sender concept came also about. I was like, what would it look like if I don't react? I copied and pasted his exact message back into the message and hit send.
Yeah.
Because here, what happens, and it was liberating for me. I felt great. I wasn't aggravated. I wasn't angry. And when people send you stuff, and again, this is not about, any philosophy on Christianity, or this is more about the message itself. I want to be clear to everybody that's listening. When you get a message, an email, or something else, don't react. You have a choice, right?
Yeah.
Stop, pause, and then if you actually try that out, maybe this is my
Yeah.
my call to action for everybody that's listening. Next message you get that could piss you off or like something that's not true, copy paste it and send it back because here's what happens on the other end. They open that up and go, wait, what just happened?
Yeah.
And the first thing they have to do, they have to read their own message to you and go, huh, and maybe something happens, maybe they will come back and we'll try to re-engage, but in most cases, I guarantee I talked to a lot of people. Quiet, nothing
That's
will
it.
come. That's it. You stop them in their tracks. It's no longer their story. You can take charge and you can take your life back. And that's what happened with me. It's been quiet. And for me, it was like, wow, my energy, that feels actually really good. I didn't argue. I didn't put him in, it wasn't one of those, oh, I'm going to put you in your place. No, it was just back to you, not mine, yours.
That's wonderful. What a genius idea. Yeah, that's definitely going to be on the playbook for sure. So, becoming the Rocket Shaman. If anyone wants to pick up a copy, pre-order, they want to reach out. Any other good business in your world, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, as I said, it's coming out. Amazon page should go live in the next week or two. So
Okay.
yeah, Amazon is a good one. It'll be in Barnes and Noble as well. But maybe the best way is to just come to my website www.rocketshaman.com. Subscribe. You'll hear first when it's out. But right now, release date is July 8th for the hardcover, and then the ebook should come out hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so. We're working hard.
I love it. What a wonderful, illuminating conversation. Thank you so much for I'm glad that we arced into this and had the chance to talk and to get a wonderful story out. Thank you and best of luck with the release.
Thank you for having me, Joe. Thanks for your show and all the great stories you're bringing into this world. We need more of that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.